Hey guys, Silverhammer here with a Kaiju deck profile. With the new, April 16, 2016 ban list, I am currently tweaking my Pendulum Magician deck and to be congruent to that and seeing how it's run. But as I work on that, this is a fun deck that I've been putting together, and I'm looking forward to the new stuff that comes out in Shining Victories. But until then, I'm going to show you what I'm running. So let's get started. First, I run 3 of the Star Destroyer Kaiju. I love it because of its effect where it can negate a card or effect that targets, and then it destroys a card on the field without targeting, which is really good. And then in addition to that, it's a 3300, so it's really hard to get over for most things, especially because anything that could potentially get over it is going to need to target it first, which lets you just kind of go, no, I'm afraid you're not going to do that. Next, you have 3 of the Mad Flame Kaijus. It's the old big beater from this set before Star Destroyer came out. 3,000 attack really isn't anything to laugh at though, so I still run 3 of it. But usually I'm actually giving this, if I were to say activate Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, I'm giving this one to my opponent, and then I'm getting the Star Destroyer one, and then I'm just running over this, and just because at that point I've cleared my opponent's board and I can start actually doing some fun. But one thing you need to be careful of, not with Mad Flame Kaiju, but more with Star Destroyer Kaiju, is its effect can be triggered on either player's turn, and they can use Kaiju counters that you have built up on your side of the field. So that's something you do need to be very careful of. Same with the Mystery Dust Kaiju. I love its effect where it can half the attack of all monsters on the field except for itself, but with the fact that it can be activated during either player's turn, again, this is one that you're going to want to be very careful giving to your opponent, because if you give it to your opponent while your opponent has or not while your opponent, but while you have Kaiju counters on the field, they can actually have the attack of whatever monsters you have out and be sitting on this 2,700 attack monster that you really won't be able to get over anymore. And for the one-ofs, I run 1 Sticky String, 1 Sea Turtle, and 1 Multi-Dimensional Kaiju. Now, the Sticky String and the Sea Turtle, I only run 1 of, even though their effects are pretty good, simply because, again, your opponent can use them during either player's turn, as long as you have counters on the field. So it's a real situational thing. And then the Multi-Dimensional Kaiju, it's a fun card. I like its token ability, and I've used it on occasion to win games and stuff. But aside from that, it's not that useful. So I'm actually probably going to end up cutting it with the new support that's coming out in Shining Victories. But, that's the Kaijus that I run. Now, unfortunately, as of right now, I don't know how Shining Victories is going to affect it, but Kaiju can't really run by themselves. They're incredibly inconsistent. So a lot of people have opted to run Gradles in their deck, but I don't like the Gradle engine. It's just a personal thing. I am trying to make a Gradle deck, so I'm probably going to be putting that out in the future, but as of right now, I'm not combining Gradles with Kaijus. Instead, I'm adding Yosenjus. I really like the Yosenju engine. Let me just show you the engine, and then I'll explain why I'm running what I'm running. I run 3 of 1, 1 of 2, and then I run 3 of 3. So I like the Yosenjus because as long as you have either one of the Yosenjus and a Tanky or comma 1 and comma 3 in your hand, you can actually start bouncing your Kaiju. So it gives you the opportunity to just clear your opponent's board. And then with having comma 3 and its searching ability, you have the ability to get more comma 1s, which allow you to just pop your opponent's field. And they're really not able to do anything about it because it's all hand effects. So even cards like Skill Drain can't stop the Kaiju effects. And I only run 1, 2 just because it's another name and the direct attack ability. But aside from that, it's really not that useful. So that's why I only run 1. So that's it for my monster lineup. Next, I've got my spells. This is the main one. This is the big one. This is my favorite card in the deck. Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. Interrupted Kaiju Slumber is essentially a dark hole. Destroys all monsters on the field, and then you're allowed to special summon 2 Kaiju monsters with different names from your deck, one on your opponent's side of the field, one on your side of the field. Both are in attack mode, and both have to attack each turn of Fable. Now, this is really good because it's a board wipe, so it essentially clears your board, and then it gives you whichever Kaiju monster you want on your side of the field, and whichever one you want your opponent to have. Now, you can. I like to combine this with, say, comma 1 and comma 3, because it lets me clear the board. I get out a big monster like the Star Destroyer, and then with comma 1 and comma 3 dropping onto the field, I can then bounce whatever Kaiju I gave them back to my hand, giving me more resources, and then I can swing, and that's easily 6,400 attack, assuming that they either don't have anything to stop it, or I don't have anything else already on the field boosting, like, say, Triple Tenki. Triple Tenki's good because it lets me get my combos. That's the main reason I run 3. The buff for 100 attack is good, but besides that, I'm just running it for the consistency to make sure that I have commas in my hand so that I can make sure to just make my plays work well. One last thing, and I kind of forgot about this, and I forget about this when I play it, which is the main reason I didn't mention it, but when this card is in your graveyard, not during the turn that you activated it, you can banish it from your graveyard to add a Kaiju monster from your deck to your hand. So it lets you add another Kaiju if, say, your opponent was able to clear the board and you don't have any extra resources. Interrupted Kaiju Slumber lets you search as well. Next, I run Double Twin Twister. Your hand can get pretty cloggy, especially with running multiple comma 1s and comma 3s, so I don't really see an issue with being able to discard for Twin Twister. Technically, it is a neg-1 if you're only destroying one card on the field, but with how much advantage this deck can produce once it starts running, you really aren't going to notice. After that, I run 2 Kaiju Waterfront and 1 Terraforming. Kaiju Waterfront, it's a great card, because anytime a card is sent from the field to the grave, you put a Kaiju counter on it. As long as it has one Kaiju counter on, as long as it has one Kaiju counter on it, it can't be destroyed because you can just remove the Kaiju counter from it instead. And then as long as it has 3 Kaiju counters on it, you can add a Kaiju monster from your deck to your hand. Now here's the fun thing: you don't remove the Kaiju counters when you search. So this lets you search, and then you can use those Kaiju counters for other effects, which is what makes it a lot of fun. And my last spell is a Single Dimensional Fissure. Well, yeah, this is a little counterproductive against, say, Kaiju Kyoto Waterfront. I find it useful just because either I'm going to use it against a deck that, say, needs its resources in the grave, such as Pendulums. Well, Pendulums don't need the resources in the grave, but they go to the grave anyway before they start going to the grave before they go to the extra deck, and so this will stop them from keeping the resources looping. And then it also stops Burning Abyss, which are probably my 2 biggest pain in the butt matchups. Cosmos aren't that big a deal really, and there are ways to side for this deck. This is definitely one thing I would side out if I was playing against Cosmos. But this deck can run decently against Cosmos, but BAs can be a bit of a pain. So that's it for my traps and for my spells. For my traps, I run 2 Kaiju capture missions. Mainly, I just run this as a way to both A, build up extra Kaiju counters so I have more resources that I can use, and then B, the draw effect, which is when it's destroyed, you can draw 2 cards. And that is a really useful effect. It adds some needed consistency to the deck. It makes it a little bit easier. I like just having Capture Mission face down and my opponent blind MST or Twin Twistering it, and then I essentially get a +1 off of that. So that's why it's really useful. Next, I run Double Booby Trap E, one of the best named cards in the game currently. I like its effect, the discard 1 card, set 1 continuous trap card from your hand or graveyard to the field, and then you can activate it. So it lets me loop my Kaiju capture missions, and it also lets me reuse some of the other continuous traps that you'll see later in this deck that I run 1 of. So if I lose one of them, but I need it for, you know, to keep the pressure on my opponent. That's the main reason I run Booby Trap E. Next, I run 2 Mirror Force. Just because this deck can be a little slow, Mirror Force is useful for stalling out your opponent for a turn or two. I'm tempted to side this out for one of the other Mirror Forces that came out in the Gold series, but I haven't yet, which is the main reason I'm just running Mirror Force, but it's a decent card, so that's why I'm keeping it. And last, my one-ofs, Macrocosmos, just because sometimes they destroy your Dimensional Fissure, and you can bring it back using Booby Trap E. Vanity's Emptiness, because once you have a Kaiju on the field, you really don't need a special summon for this deck, especially because of the fact that the rest of the monsters I run are commas. So having a Vanity's Emptiness with, say, a Star Destroyer Kaiju on the field is really useful, especially if I have the field spell and I have at least 3 Kaiju counters, because Vanity's Emptiness can't be destroyed by my opponent's card effects. Because, well, anything that would target. Because I can just target, I can negate it, destroy the card, and then target something else, and then destroy something else as well, using Star Destroyer's effect. And then lastly, I run 1 Solemn Warning and 1 Bottomless Trap Hole. Kind of self-explanatory as why I run these. They're just really good one-of traps right now with the current meta to kind of just stop your opponent and say, you know, plus for a turn or two. But that's it for my Kaiju deck. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And I'll definitely have a couple new deck profiles coming out soon. The main reason these have been so slow coming is I was waiting for the new ban list to hit, because I didn't want to put something out and then a day or two later have it be destroyed by the ban list. So, and I had made Dino Mist Draco Pals. And the day I was recording the video for the deck list, was when the ban list came out, and I lost almost 13 cards out of that deck. So currently I am working on a Dynamist deck profile. It was Dynamist Dracos, now it's not. I'm not sure what I'm going to make it, but it was a lot of fun when I did run it, so I do kind of want to make something like that again. So let me know down in the comments if there is a fun, say, you know, tier 2 deck that you want someone to kind of revamp, or you'd like to hear my opinion on, and I'd love to try and make it. Until then, this is Silverhammer, signing off.